We often associate self-esteem with this figure of extreme confidence, or on the contrary, an extremely shy individual who's too nervous to speak up and make their voice heard. In reality, self-esteem is something that each and every one of us manage and deal with throughout our lives, and it rises and falls depending on what's going on in your life, who you're around, what you're doing, the thoughts that you're thinking, and so much more. Even if you don't realize it, your self-esteem could be really affecting your outlook on life, and it could be affecting the things that you're achieving, what you're doing, who you're with. It affects so much. Recently, I've been thinking a lot about my own self-esteem. At times, I like to think that I have really good self-esteem and self-worth, but looking back on the last year, I can really sort of recognize small periods of time where I felt my self-esteem so much higher, and other times where I felt it just in the lows, like in the pits. And I think most people can relate to that. They don't really feel a constant sense of self-worth and self-esteem all the time. So to further understand this aspect of myself, I picked up a social psychology book by Dr. Nathaniel Branden. It's called The Six Pillars of Self-Esteem. And during the last week I read it, I made notes, I reflected a lot on this topic, and tried to think about it in relation to Stoic philosophy and other philosophies out there. So I really think it's important that I break this book down, tell you what I think, and I want to apply some Stoic philosophy to it as well. So the first thing that really surprised me about this book is that often I have this concept in my head before that someone with poor self-esteem is like underachieving and really struggling to know their full potential, but in reality that's not the case. So, as Dr. Nathaniel Branden points out, even like highly successful individuals that are out working hard, achieving so much, often they're the ones with the lowest levels of self-esteem. And the reason why is because they think that what they're doing is always not enough. So they can push themselves and keep working and working and working. And as a result, low self-esteem can often produce a really good work drive. But the problem with this is, no matter how hard you work or how successful you are, you'll still not be happy and content and live like an enjoyable, pleasurable experience of life as long as you have a good level of self-worth and self-esteem. So the first pillar of self-esteem, or point if you will, is to live consciously. So at first this seemed quite vague and ambiguous to me. But what it essentially is to live as present in your life as you can, not as a bystander. So it's to pay attention to the externals and the internals of your life. And most importantly, in my eyes, is to pay attention to your emotions and what you're thinking. Pay attention to the thoughts that are going through your head. Just don't let them be there. Just don't let them exist without questioning them. The moment we just become a bystander and let our life pass before in front of us is the moment that we sacrifice pretty much all control. And self-esteem is probably at that point going to go out the window because you're really not controlling yourself and you're not feeling like an individual. On this point, Nathaniel Branden points out that we all have more ability than we actually believe. And that's so true when it comes to many, many things. Even if you look at someone that's acting overconfident or believing that they're better at something than they actually are, this actually comes from a place of low self-esteem as well. With low self-esteem, you're confident in your ability and you don't feel the need to prove to other people that you're better at something than you actually feel you are. You're just confident and you're more assured that you can handle it and you can do the situation correctly. So the second point, and probably the most controversial, is the practice of self-acceptance. And why I say this is the most controversial is because often people will pose examples of, well, if you just accept yourself as you are, you're not going to improve. If you need to lose weight, then you're just not going to lose weight. You'll just accept like an unhealthy state of body, an unhealthy state of mind, and how is that good for anyone? But really, that's not what I mean, and it's not what is also meant in the book. It's to essentially change what you can and accept what you can't. You can change your behaviors. You can take the steps to, for example, exercise and become healthier. But in reality, with certain aspects, biologically or the way you're born, the condition of your body, there are so many things that you can't ever change, and you have to come to accept them. It's really about still loving and feeling comfortable with yourself, even if there are parts of you that you resent and you don't like. It's still having that respect for you, like you as a person. all of those extra things that you don't particularly like or that you would like to change, you have to realize that that's within your control to change, and you have to respect the person that is making those choices. So the third pillar and point is self-responsibility. To me, this is the most important, and this is the one that sort of hit me the most when I was reading through it, and I was like doing some research online on this topic, and I think it's something that we all actually struggle with a lot. Something I feel most people can do a lot more of is taking responsibility for their actions and not shifting the blame. It's something that we see a lot in companies and business, right across the board, everywhere. Every time there's an accusation, people are always not willing to step up and take responsibility for what's happened, if it's them. But on a more personal level, this is something that happens at the very root of our existence and the very root of our stories that we tell ourselves every single day. Sometimes we like to think of ourselves as the hero in the story of our life, and other times we really do play the victim. It can be in simple situations as arguments with friends or like a bad day that you're having. I've talked about this before, but it's when we start to play the victim, like the whole world is against us and everything is sort of out to get us. So of course I'd like to add that there are times when you genuinely are the victim, when someone does something to you or something that happens that is completely outside of your control and it's not your fault. But that's not the point of this, and there's a really good way of distinguishing using a principle from Stoic philosophy. So it says this in chapter 24 of Epictetus's in Karud. The student says, "I will live in dishonor and be nobody anywhere." The teacher replies, "How is it that you will be nobody anywhere when you ought to be somebody only in the things which are within your own power?" So what this means is to not value yourself based on the things that happen to you. So for example, if a girl chooses to be in a relationship with you, that is her choice, not yours. Your choice is your own. It's your own to partake in that relationship. But likewise, if she decides to break up with you and end things, that is also her choice and not yours, and that does not reflect upon you and your own self-worth, and you can't take that and attribute that to yourself. So therefore, for self-worth, value should only be given to the things that you control. So the fourth principle is self-assertiveness. And I don't mean like being over-assertive, being too pushy, being too crazy. Kind of what it talks about in the book is more about taking your principles that you believe, your set of beliefs, the things that really make you you, and sticking to them. Don't betray yourself. If you have something that is extremely important to you, maybe something that you do that is healthy for you and it's a really good routine, you stick to those values and stick to those principles, and you'll really respect yourself a lot more from them. The minute you start to do things that you don't agree with, things that you don't fundamentally like, things that you think are fundamentally against yourself, is the moment where you start to respect yourself a lot less. So pillar 5 is the practice of living purposefully, and this is an incredibly important point too. Another really good book based on this is Viktor Frankl's Man's Search for Meaning. It's really important to have a purpose in life, and it really gives us a feeling of drive and a feeling of confidence and, well, a feeling of purpose. To me, sometimes this sounds like extremely cliched, like it's like someone is born and they know like my purpose in life is to achieve this or to do this or become this certain position, and really it's not that. It's to pick things in life that you want to achieve and that you want to do, and to give your life an overall greater purpose. You can even set yourself targets, set yourself goals and ideas to strive for. The moment you lose all sight of this and become purposeless is the moment you just drift through life, your self-esteem being battered and becoming an NPC in someone else's game. Pillar 6 is the practice of personal integrity. Personally, to me, this is quite similar, and it really ties in with the point of self-assertiveness and sort of safeguarding your own beliefs. Basically, don't go against your true self. I've already covered this in that previous point, but discover what your integrity is and be honest and true to it. And one of the important things I think is just don't lie. Whenever you do lie, you feel so much worse about yourself. Of course, there are circumstances in life, and everyone knows it, where like small lies are sometimes needed, and they do happen. Lies are so common in today's world, but the less you lie, the more confident and the more honest you will feel about yourself. In the sense that you don't have anything to hide. You're being your true self and you're comfortable with it. That's the real important thing, is that you're comfortable with you and no lies. So in conclusion, I think the idea of self-esteem is so much more than getting up, looking at yourself in the mirror and giving yourself some positive affirmations. It's really about a way of living, a practice of living, and a real analysis of oneself and critical thought about what you're doing and how you're living. So in my case, and I do assume in most other people's, that we are our own biggest critic. And we really can't let these thought patterns and thought streams go in our head unchecked and just unruly. The more you do actually healthily question yourself and question your thoughts and beliefs and sphere of control and everything aforementioned, the more you'll feel like you'll have control over your life. And that is what provides confidence. It's a feeling of being an individual. It's a feeling of having control of your actions and knowing what is outside of your control and not worrying about it. This provides self-esteem in the sense that you have confidence in knowing your ability. You know what you can control. So that's why I think this ties so closely to Stoicism. If you're interested in Stoicism and you want to find out more about that as well, check out my other video. It's called How to Be Happy According to Stoicism, and I talk about this narrative and methods of thought a lot more. I really hope that this video provided some kind of value to you. If you did enjoy it, just drop a like, let me know that you enjoyed it, and I would love to see you subscribe and stick around for another video. Thank you very, very much for watching. I love you all. Goodbye.